Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. My name is Giridhari and today we'll be covering some very common questions concerning the Bhagavad-gita, how to deal with Bhagavad-gita as a sacred book. And the major question is, it starts with a question that might sound strange for some Westerners, but depends on your culture, you might understand why this, and I'll explain this in this video. And the question is, can I read Bhagavad-gita in bed? I will also be answering, can I listen to the Bhagavad-gita while sleeping? Can I read during periods? And when to read Bhagavad-gita. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So first of all, how to deal with a sacred text, so can I read it in bed? If you're a Westerner, I'll tell you why people even ask that question, because it might be like in your culture, you're like, what are they talking about? So the idea is this. The idea is that when you have something sacred, the idea of something sacred, be it a book, be it meditation beads, whatever you have, a sacred thing should be kept in what's called clean places, places which are not unclean. And so what is an unclean place? Well, the floor would be an unclean place. Of course, bathrooms shouldn't go into bathrooms, because bathrooms, obviously, it's a bathroom, it's where you do your necessities. So a bathroom would be an unclean place, but also the bed. Why? Well, actually, beds are kind of gross. If you think about it, you do drool, right? Every night you're just drooling on your bed, and you're shedding skin there for hours, and you're sweating, and, usually people do other things in bed. We don't have to talk about it here. So bed is where you do all these other things. So it's not the cleanest place. It's not, a holy place in that sense. So people worry, what if I take my holy book and I take it and I'm reading it in bed? I'm reading my Bhagavad-gita, it's a very holy book, it's the holiest book, it's God speaking, so would that be offensive? Would I be committing some sort of offense? Would I be degrading myself spiritually by doing that action? So it's not actually such a silly question. It's actually, there is respect behind the question. There's a culture of respect, of observing the sacred, of respecting the sacred in that sense. It's funny because, recently I'm having my house decorated, and you can see I love having pictures of Radha Krishna on my walls, and we have, holy art. And, and then the decorator will say, oh, maybe we should put this in the bathroom. We're like, no, you can't put pictures of Radha Krishna in the bathroom. It's sacred. Oh, really? Like the whole concept is like, what? Really? I never thought of that. It just doesn't occur to them. I remember once, many years ago, decades ago, I was teaching Bhagavad-gita in a yoga center. And, as I go take a break, and, to alleviate myself, I go into the bathroom and I was like, oh no, there's Radha Krishna. It's like, oh no, this is a yoga center. At least you'd think that in a yoga center they would have some sense. And there I was, having to oh, excuse me, Lord, I have to pee here. It wasn't, it didn't feel nice, What's the big deal? At the same time, what are we dealing with here? At the same time, Bhagavad-gita is wonderful, right? So we don't want people not to read the Bhagavad-gita. You want to, you go ahead, read the Bhagavad-gita anywhere you do it. It's better, no matter how crazy it might be, if you're not purposely trying to offend the book, I'm going to throw this in the, you're not purposely trying to be offensive. They use this term, offensive. If you're not purposely trying to be offensive, then of course it's great for you. If you just innocently, you got your Bhagavad-gita and you're reading it in bed, good for you. it's wonderful in that sense. It's like, wow, somebody's reading to be reading the Bhagavad-gita is wonderful. It really is I can't express how wonderful it is. It really is like an amazing event in the history of you. So in this everlasting history of you, because yoga is saying that you've existed since forever. So in the history of you since forever, the fact that you're sitting down reading the Gita is just incredible. It's like fireworks are going off. Superb. All right. So the fact that you're doing it in bed is like, who cares about that detail? That is a small, tiny detail within this like amazing fact that is going on here. You know, so in that sense, so there's a practical sense of like, this is transcendent, this is wonderful. God doesn't care. And ultimately, he doesn't care. What does he care? He just wants you to become enlightened. He doesn't care how you do it, how you go about it. He just wants you to become enlightened. And he knows that, if you read the Gita, most wonderful thing you can do. So on one side, whatever, no rules. Just go ahead, listen to the Gita, read the Gita anyway, anyhow. Sure, great. On the other hand, once you're like, okay, I'm reading the Gita, but it is a sacred text. It is a sacred book. So how do we deal? It's nice to relate to the book in a sacred manner. To think about it. This is sacred. This is non-different from God. So you touch it to your head. You put it in a nice place. You're not going to chuck it across the hair. You don't do these things. Because it's nicer for you, let's put it that way. It's nicer for you when you really understand how wonderful and sacred that, Bhagavad-gita is, and Srimad Bhagavatam and other texts, how wonderful how special they are. They really are non-different from God. So, you don't want to just like be disrespectful to holy things. So in that sense, if you can, sure, don't, if you're not sick and you have to be in bed anyway, don't worry about it. But if you can, go and sit down somewhere in a chair and read it nicely. And when you're finished, you touch it to your head and you put it in a nice place. That's really good. You want to even have the Bhagavad-gita next to your bed, that's great, because you have like a nice sacred object like right next to your bed. You can look, oh yeah, Bhagavad-gita, you wake up and oh, Krishna, so that's great. I mean, I have pictures of Krishna in my room as well. I like seeing Krishna everywhere. So that's very important. Another question then is, can I listen to the Bhagavad-gita while sleeping? People actually ask this question. Again, they're thinking, is this like offensive? Is there something wrong with it? Again, I would say, don't worry about it, it's not going to do you much good to listen to something while you're sleeping. People say it's going in there somehow, but, that's not really going to work, right? So why not just listen to the Bhagavad-gita while you're driving, while you're preparing your meals, while you're working out? That's great. I listen to thousands of hours of, lectures by my spiritual master and other lectures on Bhagavad-gita. I've listened to thousands of hours, and I've produced myself, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours of content as well. So people can listen, and I don't care if they listen to me while they're working out or going to the, cleaning their house or, going to work, whatever, right? I don't expect people they have to just sit there. It's nice if they pay attention, but you don't have to. And then the other question is, can I read Bhagavad-gita during periods? Why this period thing? Because, especially like the old, more misogynist culture of the past, they had this thing with periods. Of course, we know there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like completely natural. But they had this idea that at the woman's like, she's unclean. I don't like that kind of thinking. I think it's really weird because honestly, us guys, we're oozing all kinds of things. Everybody is, right? Who isn't oozing something out, right? It's like you've got mucus and spit and, I don't have to go into the details, but, we're all gross. Let's face it, we're all gross. You've got like sweat and fat and stuff coming out of your hair, beards. Everything's gross, right? If you look at it carefully. That's why you'll see that in Yoga Sutras, Patanjali says that, it gets to a point where you think there's jugupsitan, it's gross to like physical contact because, it is a little gross. So I don't, I wouldn't worry about that. Just like forget that. Go ahead. It's so much more beneficial for you than it might be in any way. Oh, it's offensive. Don't worry about that. Again, just as much time as you can spend reading Bhagavad Gita, just holding it, just looking at it is great. You know, we have like stories from great saints. They were just like so happy just to see somebody looking at the cover of a Bhagavad-gita. You know, it's a little drawing of Krishna on the chariot talking to Arjuna, just looking at that, just looking at that's all. It's just amazing. This is a form of meditation. So go ahead. And lastly, the question is when to read Bhagavad-gita. You know, if you look at the tradition, you'll say, oh, the holiest time of the day is called the Brahma Muhurta. What is the Brahma Muhurta? It's the hour and a half, it's actually technically just the 45 minutes before sunrise, but they say an hour and a half. Some say 2 hours before sunrise. But Muhurta really is 45 minutes, so technically it would be 45 minutes before the sunrise, but whatever. So they say that moment before sunrise, this is for the early birds here, that is the most, you know, auspicious time of the day. So if you want to be like, oh no, what's the best time of the day for meditation, for spiritual stuff, it would be the Brahma. But you know what? Again, it doesn't matter, because this is so powerful. You being in touch with Krishna, with Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, with, you know, mantra meditation, doing the holy names of the Lord, it is so powerful. It overrides everything else. It overrides any other consideration. There's a famous story of the great saint Lord Chaitanya from the Bengali Middle Ages, and so he's there and he's just chanting the holy names, because, you know, that's what he came for, to spread the chanting of the holy names, especially of the Mahamantra Hare Krishna. So he's Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare, and then he goes off to do his necessities, right? He goes off, you know, into the, you know, before they wouldn't have bathrooms, they would just go into, you know, behind a tree somewhere or something. So he goes off, and then he comes back and he's holding his tongue, and then somebody asks, why are you doing that, Prabhu? Why are you holding your tongue? He says, oh, I'm just so embarrassed because I had to do my necessities, but I couldn't stop chanting the holy names. I couldn't stop chanting. And I just felt bad that I was like, you know, it's like I was peeing, and, you know, he doesn't say that, but that I was peeing, and I had to hold, you know, I was chanting the holy names. It seemed so inappropriate. And then this little boy saint says, no, you should, he knew that already, but he wanted to, like, you know, have a little saintly boy says, no, you should always chant in any circumstance. Doesn't matter. There are no rules or regulations when it comes to chanting the holy names. So that's the mood that I personally embody as well. I've always done it for, like, just like, don't worry about this. I see some people get caught up in the rules. Don't worry about the rules. What's important is that you are connecting, you're uplifting your consciousness, you are chanting the holy name, you're reading the holy books. That's millions of times more important than, like, oh, was that the right time? Oh no, doing periods, you shouldn't touch the... No, forget all that. Just go for it. You know, Krishna doesn't care about that. God doesn't care about these silly rules. He just wants you to love him, to be connected with him, to experience yourself again. So that's it. Let me know if you have any questions, if everything's clear. I'd love to hear from you, and have a rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.